Hi, and welcome back to Clifton's Clicks. This is episode 6, and in this, I talk about the exploration between the various levels of reality, as I coin it, upgrading our operating software to allow us to make sense, understand, and comprehend all the things that occur in life and in our realities in a way where things make sense. Oftentimes, there are things that happen where our current working model of reality just doesn't fit in, and it's those deviations from our model that tend to get overlooked and passed, pushed under the carpet, so to speak, in terms of not wanting to do a little more investigation and upgrading our view of how the world works. And so we've been talking about the exploration from a logic based reality to understanding emotions, understanding that there's this mind body connection, that there's an observation of what's happening in the universe and in the macrocosm is tied to, or there's similar principles that can be extracted in how our economy at large is operating with how our physical body operates, as well as on the subatomic and smaller level, the microcosm, so to speak. And I've been sharing with you my journey of understanding just how the body works as a vehicle to understand how we can upgrade our operating software and use that to see how it applies to how the universe works or how reality works. And if there's any deviations or things that don't match, to investigate that and see if there's slight nuances or complete rewrites that we need to make to the way we feel and we believe that the reality operates. And with that, we talked about the journey through yoga, and then the body, and then the checking out the different meridians in the body, the different organs, the different biomarkers. We talked about all the different general modalities of healing, identifying that water seemed to hold this incredible key to all these perceived deviations. I mentioned the three, the hydration, inflammation, and digestion issue. And then we started to just dive into, and break down all the different components of water. And we went through many of them. I got feedback that we went through many of them very logically, very linearly. And that is really the perspective that I want to take in conveying this, because it can get a bit ungrounded. And my intention is really to ground it in a very logic-focused way. And so, we mentioned the 5 components or 6 components of water, right? The purity of water, the pH of water, the bond angle of water. Then we also mentioned the physical structuring of water, water temperature, and then this energetic component of water. And it's that last one that I want to look at and retell the story from a more linear perspective, to make sure that I do what I can to keep everyone together on this journey. And if there's things that kind of deviated, I do want to clarify and rectify. Once it enters into this realm, there's a lot of unstructured information, a lot of incredible experiments that are happening. And of course, I get very excited by those experiments and wish to enrich you about them, so that way you recognize that there is grounding and scientific method applied to what I'm saying. But I also understand that all these different stories and studies can be a bit overwhelming and could kind of lose you and lose the discussion from a very linear perspective to being a bit more complicated and convoluted. And so with that, I want to go back to that energetic structuring of water because I feel it deserves a little bit more attention and a little more clarity. And so I thank you for all of you who provided me with that feedback. Um, so, of course, what we had talked about before was that there's the physical structuring of water. That's important. I use the metaphor of your messy room. You can't really relax or do what you want to do in your room if it's all disorganized. Same thing with water. If the physical structuring of water is disorganized, which tends to happen when it's being piped through right angle pipes and bottled in the bottling process, then your body can't really absorb the water, and it can't absorb the nutrients in the water. And so physical structuring of water really helps with hydration and absorption of the nutrients. So that's why it's important, right? Because it's one thing to understand all these characteristics of water, but the real essence of it is what's in it for me? Why should I care, right? And so you should care to have physical structured water because it improves your hydration and makes sure that your body's absorbing the water and the nutrients, which is important because you have lower cognitive function and a whole slew of other issues when you are dehydrated. So I feel like that is fairly clear. But then the next part, when I went into the energetic component of it, then how does that impact your body? Like, yeah, that might be cool. I guess I'm not quite sure what energy is. Let me help clarify how it impacts our body. So we had mentioned Dr. Emoto out in Japan ran a whole series of studies which have been emulated and replicated to a very varying degree of success and more often than not successful, which is, as I stated in an earlier episode, far more than can be said for a lot of other studies, right? Replicability of studies is one of those things that has come under scrutiny. And so Dr. Emoto ran a few experiments that have been replicated successfully numerous times. There's also people who disprove it or try to disprove it. And we can go into that, why it didn't work or why it may not have worked. But the main point is that these experiments have been repeated successfully, showing the same results. And more importantly, you can do it at home, the results, so you can believe it and see it and understand it in your reality and not just have to rely on some expert or some fancy study saying that it is or isn't true. So the first one that I wanted to talk about was Dr. Emoto's rice experiment. And this is where he and his team filled, a jar with rice and water, 2 jars with rice and water, or a few jars with rice and water. And on half of them, he put it in a separate area, and he would say nice things to that water. And then the other half, he would just say bad things to that water, or to that water and that jar. Like, you are awful. I hate you. Things are, disgusting. And then on the good ones, like, I love you. Things are amazing. I'm so grateful for you. So all these generally understood aspects of positive things to say to something or someone, and then negative things to say. And then observed it. And of course, the jar was closed, so air sealed. And what he observed was those things that he said bad things to started to rot really quickly. And those he said nice things to stayed nicer over an extended period of time. And he did have a third group, which was the test subject, which was the one he just left completely by itself and ignored. And so why this is important is it demonstrates that how we say, what we say impacts water, and we can visually see how it impacts organic life. So negative things increase the decay rate of organic things, and it makes them look gross and nasty. Saying nice things, positive things, helps extend people's lives or helps extend the life of the rice, helps prevent the decay and makes it look prettier. So, I mentioned that we feel better when people say nice things about us versus when they say bad things about us, which is one of the principles that people go around saying, say nice things. In Bambi, Thumper's mom said, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Which is kind of a golden rule in many circles in society, and that's because from a more psychological perspective, if people say nice things about you, you're going to feel happier. And if they say bad things about you, you're going to feel sadder. And now there are macro studies demonstrating that the more nice things and encouraging things that are said to you, the more likely you are to succeed in life or to do good things in life. And if you have negative things said about you, then you're more likely to not succeed and fail in certain areas. And so what's great is that this rice experiment visually shows this. In one jar it has gross, decaying rice, and then in another jar it has well preserved and beautiful water and beautiful rice. So it's a visualization and a direct example of what happens when you say good things versus bad things from a visual layer. And so you can also do this through just simply, instead of saying things, you can just have emotion. So instead of saying a nice thing to rice, you can just get yourself into a feeling of love or gratitude. And then on the other side, you can get into a feeling of anger. And so just your feelings, not even words, can be relayed, and you can have the same results, where positive feelings, the rice will be more preserved and will be prettier, and negative feelings and emotions, the rice will decay faster and the water will look uglier and the jar will look uglier too. And so what this does is it creates this understanding that it's not just the words that you say impacts water and things, but also the emotions you share and show to people and things has an impact. And why this is important is, from a logic perspective, outside of the realm of emotions, you can say something from a logical perspective, like texting, for example, and you can read it, and it may be perceived as a positive thing, but if there's a negative emotion associated to it, it will be received as negative. And oftentimes we read text with a certain inner voice and inner dialogue of the emotion we feel that the words were being conveyed in. And what I want to do is reel myself back in, because I realize I've gone on a bit of a tangent. And so the main point is that your words and your emotions impact water and impact the decay rate of rice. Also, what you can do is you can take water and you can visually observe it when you freeze it and crystallize it to see what kind of shapes it makes. And this is another experiment that Dr. Emoto did, where he would say things to a specific water droplet and then freeze it and then see what kind of crystals formed. And then he would say, and in other experiments, have just the emotions of negative things and observe how the water crystallized when it was frozen. And what happened was there was a visual representation in the crystallization where positive things that were being said, the crystal was much prettier looking, much more symmetrical, and just more pleasing to the eye. Smoother areas, smoother edges, very complex and what we would just say is beautiful from a design perspective. And then the ones that were said bad things to or had negative emotions had very jagged edges. It was not symmetrical, and just had that visual representation of not being pleasing to the eye either. And so what this means is that we can have a visual representation, not just from a experiment through rice, but we can actually observe the water itself, how it physically changes shape when we say things or have certain emotions. And so what's beautiful about that, and why it applies further, is that what you can do is you can actually take images, and just with images alone, put them next to or in the presence of specific water, and the water will actually form specific crystal structures based on just the image you give it. So you draw a picture, or you have a printout of a picture, and you place water on it, or you have a printed out piece of paper, and then you place a water bottle on it, like a clear water bottle, like glass water bottle or plastic, and you place it on the paper with the image on it. The water in that bottle actually starts to take shape and interact with that image, and you can actually replicate that image to a certain degree, or based off of whatever that image was, and then the water itself can be observed and frozen, and you could actually transfer this imaging of from that piece of paper to a specific water droplet that you freeze, and it crystallizes in that shape. And it's a incredible thing that I want to make sure I've explained clearly, is that you can say something to water, you can have emotion, feelings to water, or you can put a picture next to water, and that impacts the structure of that water, the energetic structure of that water. Um, so what that means is, instead of just constantly saying something, you can say a prayer for your water before you drink it. You can get into a state of harmony and gratitude and then drink it. You can also put specific designs uh, on water bottles or on pieces of paper that you then put the water bottle on, that will actually impact the water itself, the energetic aspect of water. And what you can see is there's certain water bottles like this that have different shapes to them and different names. And these shapes are typically what would be referred to as sacred geometry. But what those shapes do is they structure the water energetically. It is as though me just filling up this water and drinking it um, is like me sending certain messages to that water, like, I love you so much, I have so much gratitude for you. Because specific shapes are actually visual representations of that energy of what I'm saying, as well as the emotions that are being shared. And so water picks up emotions, it picks up words, it picks up shapes that are in its field. And so why does that matter? Why does it matter that certain crystals are, certain water has prettier crystal structures? What matters with that? Why does that matter to me and on my health journey and awakening journey? Is that when you measure this water, you can measure the energetic signature of that water. And there have been studies in which you have a before and after test on your body of how it's doing. And there are certain biotesting devices that test your organs, your chakras, and your overall energetic health, where you can actually see and observe how certain practices and things you consume impact your overall energetic health. And So when you actually drink specific energized water through words, through emotions, through these specific shapes, you can actually test how your body responds. And it's a multi-dimensional assessment. In Western medicine, of course, we have our typical diagnostic testing. We also have subclinical testing of our organs. And what's emerged is specific tests of our energetic bodies that is tied, that is rooted in our organ functioning and our performance, that is generally accepted in the Western fields of science and medicine. And it ties it to the more Eastern notions of wellness and health, that being of meridian health, organ health, chakra health, and energetic body health. And so these biotesting devices you can use to see if something works or not, or how something impacts your body. And so there are tests that do it to demonstrate why and how doing meditation impacts your body, getting to a state of flow impacts your body, how eating something healthy impacts your body, supplements, etc., etc. And so what has also been done is a test of how your body responds to just drinking regular bottled water before and after, how your body responds to drinking structured water before and after, and then how your body responds to drinking structured, energetically encoded water before and after. And what the results demonstrate is that the specific energy that is imprinted on water, whether it's saying things like "I love you" or "I'm so grateful for you," or whether it's simply a specific shape that is a visual representation of what that kind of emotion or that saying is, it actually has a measurable impact on your body and your body's health. And so we're thinking at this point, okay, so I can say nice things to my water. I can send positive emotions to my water. I can even have a sacred geometry or mandala or some image and put that next to my water. And when I consume that water, my body will go through a more powerful healing process than normal, than if I had just drank regular water or regular structured water that's not energetically encoded. Yes. Okay. Well, let's ground this a little more because I'm not quite sure I trust these new diagnostic tests, these bioenergetic tests. So let's bring it back, right? We're working down into the core of how our bodies work. So if it's true at the core, then when we extract it back up, then it should work when we extract it to a more broad general understanding that is accepted by modern society. So let's do that. So okay, so you're saying that drinking water structured with these kinds of shapes on them is more beneficial for me than drinking just water straight with no shape on it. Yes, that is my claim. Okay, so prove it to me. Okay, well, there are specific tests you can run that demonstrate how you, before and after drinking regular water, impacts your body, and then how drinking water from this actually impacts your body. And you can compare those results, and the results demonstrate that drinking water from that has been shaped or encoded like this impacts you greater. Okay, well, how does it impact you greater? Well, it impacts the subtle energy around you that you emanate, which can be picked up through gas discharge visualization. Okay, it can be picked up based off of the um, clumping of your red blood cells in your veins. Okay, that's interesting. It can pick up greater chakra balancing and alignment in your body through some bioenergetic tests. Okay, well, I'm not quite sure I'm there yet with you, Clifton, but keep trying another one. Okay, well, it also helps improve specific organ function. Okay, talk to me about that. Well, if I know that uh, an organ of mine is kind of getting beaten up or is badly damaged through these subclinical tests that are out there and available, um, that we used at my previous company to understand the biochemistry, then we know that the reason that they are damaged or not functioning properly, we can see that. And we also know that the fascia connected to those organs create that meridian. And we know that when a organ isn't functioning properly, when it just needs more energy or it's not functioning properly, then it pulls on the fascia in that meridian, which then means that our body posture and the fascia in our body get tight too. Okay, talk to me. So, if we target specific organs and we align a specific intention saying mandala and encode that water, put it in the water or say it to the water and drink it, then over time we will also be able to observe that that organ gets better. It's it's better functioning. It's more vital, and our posture with the tight fascia will actually start to loosen up again. So then my posture will actually be better, and I'll be able to visually see the change and the impact. So yes, that's exactly what I'm claiming and what has been out there and demonstrable. Um, and to support that, one final piece is there's certain machines out there that can actually understand where the meridian is deficient and understand what frequency to deliver it. And there are dramatic before and after results through this device tapping into the meridian that's deficient and sending a specific frequency to it. So we know that it is possible to impact the meridian and the fascia by delivering a specific energetic frequency. We also know that we can drink water that has a particular type of frequency that improves your posture and your organ functioning as well. Um, so the main point is that energized water can be an incredible healing tool, and it can be seen as the perfect delivery mechanism of the supplement medicine that you need. Um, you can structure it and you can set a certain intention that is far more complicated for us to understand than Western medicine currently has, such as I want more grace in my life. We kind of understand from a psychological perspective what grace means, but what does that mean in terms of dosing you with a specific supplement or prescription drug? You don't go, hey, I'm lacking in grace. Can you write me a prescription for grace? Um, but you can actually encode grace into water. You can understand the frequency of grace and put that onto your body through electronic devices. But more cheaply, you can simply just do that through specific structuring and energetic encoding of your water. And so energized water can be an incredible healing tool. And if we look just for other demonstrations of just how healing water can be, we can look at all the major religions, and there's all these scriptural and specific references to water as this incredible healing tool. Things like the holy water, Zum Zum water, a guru's blessed water, all types of oral history and tradition demonstrate just how powerful water can be. And what's great is that we now have scientific proof behind this, beyond just our general understanding of why water is good for us to be properly hydrated, is that water can hold incredible signatures, energetic signatures in them that can help improve your organ functioning, and it can also improve more complex things like desiring more grace. And so getting to that point of talking about, wait, Clifton, I just wanted to fix my liver, and I know I had like excess anger, but now you're talking about things like grace and things like that. That's sort of like a next level of assessment. Um, but am I confident and comfortable with knowing and understanding that energized water can actually help me heal my liver? Well, one of the things is when you have a poor liver, for example, is that you're demonstrating more anger. And from behavioral psychology, we know that you can't get rid of certain traits or behaviors. You can only replace old behaviors. And so when you have a liver issue, which means you also have an anger issue, you can't remove anger, but you have to replace it with something that's positive. So you have to replace it with something like grace. And so that's really where the powerful shift and transformation then goes to, is this recognition that we can take all the supplements we want, we can do all the body work we want, we can take all the cool, fancy, energized water that we want, but what it comes down to is the inner work and finding ways of developing new behaviors and recognizing that our old behaviors has led us to why we have this liver issue. And so at that point, we get to where I want to conclude for today, is that these energetic encodings open up a whole field of studying and understanding a lot of what spirituality has been teaching in terms of self-improvement, inner work, shadow work, asking for forgiveness, things of that nature. And also, it opens up a whole new level of what kind of things can we and do we want to energetically encode into our water. Because yes, of course, we want more energy, maybe some more love in our water. But even before we get to those kinds of concepts of love, we want to heal our heart. We want to make sure we have a healthy heart. We want to make sure our lungs are functioning properly. And how do we do this? Which specific shapes do we put on our water? What specific things do we say? What specific emotions do we share? And that opens up a field of what's called subtle energy exploration, because it takes and starts to look really into what are these affirmations really containing when we say things like I love you water, and showing love to water and harnessing the frequency of love and embedding that into water or immersing us in that frequency. And also ties us into kind of these more sacred geometric shapes, which there's a lot of references to in spirituality and specific mandalas. Like, for example, behind me here and here are specific mandalas that were drawn by some Tibetan masters. And so perhaps all these more sacred spiritual things actually have very strong scientific backing and understanding as to why they are there and how they can impact us. And so, to summarize, right, what we say to water impacts water, how we feel towards water impacts water. Our water then takes that and encodes that. And it can be said also, it can be said through words to water, emotions to water, and shapes that are presented to water. And water then creates a specific crystalline energetic structure, which we consume, which we also know impacts our body and affects us at the more biomarker level of our organs, that impacts at our posture level, that impacts us at the um, more subtle energy level, the energetic body level, the chakra level, and a lot of these new bio testing devices. And we also know that it opens up this whole new level of what kind of healing we can do, and using water as that delivery mechanism to heal, based off of the types of frequencies and signatures that are encoded in this water. And we start to recognize that there's certain patterns and shapes, crystal shapes from these water droplets when we demonstrate things like love and say things like gratitude to water, that is tied to sacred geometry, tied to spiritual mandalas. And so we start to understand that water can be an incredible healing tool. We start to see that the reference of water as an incredible healing tool is there and is present in spiritual references. And we also start to recognize that we have to not just heal what's wrong with us, but rather, like the bad liver with excess anger, we have to replace that anger with new emotions and new behaviors. And therefore, we start to understand that we have to do some form of inner work and reconciliation as to why we demonstrate anger, not just from a biochemical perspective or an organ perspective, but from an understanding of life and what we desire and what we want. And there's certain tools that can help us that we encode into water. There's specific mandalas and specific things that we can say that start to energetically um, encode itself into water that we can consume. And this also opens up the path of why mantras are really important or can be important, because just as we say something to water and it structures water in a harmonious way, we can say things to ourselves and it will inner vibrate ourselves and our water to those specific energetic signatures. And so from here, we start to understand that, okay, you can actually demonstrate an emotion and that impacts water. But our emotions can be tied to many things, including our organ and biochemistry function. So then, even before that, it's the intention behind expressing that emotion and the intention towards what it is that we actually want to encode the water with, which goes back to and ties to the intention with which we have in our minds for what it is that we truly want to achieve and what we want to do and how we view reality. And so we've traced ourselves back to a core principle that a lot of self-help and spiritual teachings have taught us, is that it's really all about the thoughts that we have and that we hold that impact the entire spectrum of our reality, because the thoughts we hold and then we either hold within us and emotionally convey without words, or the thoughts we hold and we say, or the thoughts we hold and we write, um, impacts our internal water. It impacts our external water that we can consume. And we know that that water uh, and those sayings, that energy affects our physical body, which then impacts our organs and the way in which we react to certain situations, which then over a long period of time impacts our fascia and our body's posture and position, which also impacts our energetic level, which then impacts how we go about our day to day and impacts the decisions we make and brings us to a present state as to understanding how and why we are in the certain situation, reality that we are in. And so I want to explore that a little more. I want to have some time to think about this and really map it out so it's linear, um, but it's really tied it to a scientific perspective as to why our thoughts create our reality, and just how powerful our thoughts and words can be used as healing devices, delivered internally through affirmations, through mantras and chants, but also externally and scientifically validated through structuring our water and consuming that, as well as how it impacts our surroundings and other people around us, um, which impacts our community and our world at large. Um, so I hope you stayed with me towards the end. I was making some interesting connections and clicks. But the main takeaway today is water can be energetically encoded through the words you say, emotions you feel, pictures and shapes that you draw. You can also use that water to impact and heal you at a much higher and more multidimensional level than traditional Western medicine, and even some other modalities of medicine can even approach. And one of those things is it's the recognition that you can't get rid of behaviors, you can only replace behaviors, and therefore it's to come up with a strong intention to replace those behaviors, and that is based on the thought and the intention, um, that you have, which is the core principle that derives your reality. I really would love your feedback on that. If it was clear, if it wasn't clear, we'll definitely explore that in a future date. Just know water is incredibly powerful. You can energetically encode it. Um, there's a whole field of science that is breaking down kind of just what things should you say, what energies or frequencies or emotions should you show it in order to have a specific impact on your body in a multidimensional way, and what shapes and mandalas they should be. And that one of the best ways to get into that is simply having the intention to replace old negative behaviors with positive behaviors by just focusing on the positive behaviors and intentions and desires you have for life. And water can be a beautiful healing tool, and that religion has been talking about that and been practicing these for centuries and millennia. And it's kind of how we can bring together science and health of the human body with religion. Um, and so don't forget to subscribe, like. Your feedback is very appreciated. Comments. I'm excited. I'm not quite sure now where to go because I feel as though I've quite covered a lot of things. And I feel like we're going to get into um, the concept of torsion fields, quantum entanglement, and powers of the third eye next. So, with this, I really appreciate you. I really love all your feedback and love you and respect your feedback. And definitely things are getting fun and getting exciting. So, with that, I hope you have a great day. And I'll see you next time on Clifton's Clicks.